Taking risk is probably one of the best things you can do. Over the past week, I've been reading the book Fortune's Formula. I know in here it's a bit reversed, but it's by William Poundstone, and it's basically all about the scientific betting system of risk. And what I learned a ton that probably isn't talked about too often is that the best thing you could do if you want to be successful is to keep taking risk, which is a bit weird to say, especially at my young age. Probably taking risk is seems even more crazy. But in this book, it really goes over the Kelly criterion, which is basically like you want to bet not too much because then you might lose everything, or not too little because otherwise you're just losing out on everything. And it's about finding basically the flow state, which is where I'm right in the best spot. It's basically like in philosophy, you have being virtuous, right? You can't be perfect, but the best thing you could do is to be right in between the worst and the best, because if you have too much of something, it's actually terrible. If you have too little, it's even worse. And the best thing is really to find that equilibrium. And in this book, it talks about uh, different scientists during different time periods of how they even came up with this. And it's mostly through the trial and error that they kept going through. There was one about a computer scientist who came up with the idea of information technology. The guy himself, Claude Shannon, it was in this book, really talked about how he even came up with this idea, and the entire idea was taking risk. And that's exactly why you should take risk. It's because really the best way to put it is that if you have nothing to lose, you gotta take risk even more. I mean, it goes back to kind of philosophy. It's like, well, why are you doing anything if you can't take any risk? And in this book, it was really about that the most successful people take the most amount of risk. The only reason they got successful is because over the long run, all those losses they kept taking from risk did not outweigh the wins. And really, a bit of my personal story of what I've been doing, because I really haven't posted on YouTube in 2 months, I think almost three. And what I've basically been doing is reading a ton of books, and I kind of wanted to start getting back into YouTube videos because I'm basically becoming an auto addicted to it. I'm not really doing, or autodidact, my bad. But I've basically been learning so many things. I mean, been reading 48 Laws of Power, Wealth and Nations, just read Fortune's Formula. I mean, I basically bought an entire library, like slowly over time. And I've been learning to take risk like really no tomorrow. And I started doing that by trading stocks, which is really stupid because most people don't make it, which is 100% true because, I mean, if you just look at the math, the probabilities. But I think, I don't know, just the way I came up with my own strategy, I kind of just didn't watch anything online about trading or anything. I went in blind, literally like blind. I didn't know what options were and everything, and I basically started from a book. And then I started on Robinhood, then they kind of let me down, so I switched to Fidelity where I have my long-term investments. And I've kind of just been taking risk when I saw the opportunity, and I'm not like glamorizing trading or anything, but for my age, I made quite a good amount of money just sitting at home and trading. I know I don't really have that much experience, it's only been a few months, but that's how I started to learn to take risk. And then I saw this book from all these people who got into finance, and basically said this book is one of the reasons why I learned to take risks, because you need to think about it like it's philosophy. being virtuous, right? Like, you want to have, there's here, which is you're crazy, you're not crazy at all, and you want to be in the middle. Well, how do you find that? It's being just crazy enough to take the risk. And well, how do you actually do that? And it's you keep doing it consistency, because the whole goal is that you want to win in the long run. So you got to take enough losses to start to be able to figure out what's getting you to win. Because there's the thing in probability theory, like you could have a 60% chance and it could still never happen. It doesn't mean it's actually like 60%, like some scenario is going to pan out. And that's why you really got to find the edge, which is what actually gets you past the probability, because 60% means it's possibly that 6 out of 10 times it would happen, but that doesn't mean it ever will, ever. And there's actually, it's the 60% only happens as you're approaching infinity. So anything could happen in between that, and it's like the entire universe. That's why probability theory is so crazy and complicated, because you could look at like percentage. I have a 75% chance of making it in this, and I'm gonna bet everything I have, and all of a sudden I lose everything. And it's really where I learned to have risk management, but to take enough risk. I remember started with $1,000 doing $100 options, which is kind of crazy. I grew that couple thousand. I mean, it's only been a few months, so I'm not like rolling in the bank saying, "Where's my money?" But the fact that I'm learning these things just from reading books is crazy, and that's why you gotta take risk. Because you could see a probability all day, but if you never take that risk, how are you gonna know if it was even true? And not only that, but it's about finding the edge. How do you find the edge? Well, you look at basically, at least when you're looking at trading in stocks, you have all these people trying to do the exact same thing. And you have to figure out your own strategy and listen to nobody, because these probabilities, like there was I think it was a study or something about traders, and 95% of them lose everything they have and blow their account. And it really made me think, well, what's the 5% doing differently? Like, how come some people just do it and they're part of the 5% instead of the 95? Doesn't really make too much sense. But then I realized that like they really wanted to take the risk in a way where they figured out that they can't bet everything at once, and learn along the way why they were losing money, and essentially found the edge. Part of it is the psychology I knew getting into this specific entry in a trade, like all these different factors in the market. But what I've basically learned is that don't really listen to anybody about trading. I mean, I looked on YouTube after trading for a while, and like it's just so fake, because they don't tell you anything about trading. And it's just all the psychology buttering you up, telling you everyone could do this, you could be part of that 5 to 1%, you could be that top 1%, but that's just not the case. You want to average out the risk you're taking, minimize the losses as much as you can. But the problem is that most of your losses come right at the beginning, which I learned very quickly, because I lost a lot of money when I started, but I learned to manage my risk. I started to diversify, not in just options, but taking some of the profits and putting it in long-term investments. In case something really hits the fan, I still have long-term investments that have been appreciating the entire time I've been taking risks. And I really recommend reading Fortune's Formula, but I really want to make videos again, and to start by talking about taking risk. Just please take it. I can't stress enough taking risk, and also just get that noise out of your head. I mean, I had it for a while. I mean, I can't even describe it really, but it's just everything else going on in life around you taking you away from your focus. And I've just been consistent on it and taking risks constantly. I need to make sure that I at least take like 1 to 2 big risks every week. I mean, I don't have that much money. I started from zero, okay? And last week I made like $1,000 in the stock market, and it kind of made me wonder how the hell is that even possible? But really, it's because I took risk long enough to make it work. Now I could also just lose everything next week, but really, it's the risk management that I've been taking, and it doesn't just apply to trading. I mean, I could go on for days straight talking about why you should take risks, like even starting a business and seeing, well, I have nothing to lose and all I have is upside if something happens. So this is a no-brainer. And I consider that about making YouTube videos too, as the more I describe myself and what I think, I could really help teach people. And I really want to make longer videos, but I know people kind of think they're boring. And I like making longer videos because then you really get to hear the thought process out, which I wish people did on YouTube. And I really just don't hear enough of it. Of people make like 5-minute videos describing these things, and I want to sit there for a while watching and really getting to know it, because I'm kind of just used to reading books now, and that is exactly why. And I really hope you learn something from this, because there's so much stuff on like TikTok and YouTube Shorts, all these different sites, Instagram, where it's just about your short attention span and making sure that you're entertained. Part of what makes you learn is being bored, and I think that's been lost in our society recently. And I really hope that you start to take boredom more seriously. I know this sounds kind of stupid, but that's where you learn to take the risk. You're bored and like, well, what about this? What about that? But if you're constantly being entertained, you're getting sidetracked by all these different things. You can't narrow down and say, well, how can I actually achieve something? And that is really why you should take risks. I mean, there's the Kelly criterion. Don't take too much or too little. Find basically that virtuous middle, like in the philosophy, not too much, not too little. But there is no definitive number to get in the middle. You can't. It's the unique balance you find between taking risk, which is why exactly I keep taking risk. Because I started from nothing, so I have nothing to lose with all this money, and that is why I'll probably succeed in the future, just because I'm doing as much as I can to learn and average out what I've done. And I think you could do the exact same thing with anything. It doesn't have to be trading. I mean, you could think of it like going to the gym, which is what I've been doing too. It's crazy. It really adds up if you keep doing it, but it takes like a year or two. It really does. And with the society right now, everything constantly needs everything now. It needs to be done now. And not taking like 3 to 6 months to actually figure something out and actually really take the risk long enough to see the thing. Because what I've seen is most people just quit as soon as they lose. It happens more than you think. That's the trader's dilemma. 95% of people have lost, specifically in retail trading, because they lost a bunch and then they quit. I mean, you could say the same thing about gamblers' problem. You quit before you hit the diamonds. But that's, you really gotta find that in between, because at the same time, if you do too much, well, every big thing eventually fails like that. You do everything, you think you're on top of the world, and you hit that Dunning-Kruger effect where you think you know everything and then you hit rock bottom. Even worse than if you start with nothing. Because now your ego is destroyed, and I don't want that to happen to anybody. And the best way to do it is immerse yourself in taking risk. I mean, this is what the video's been mostly about, and I probably can't stress enough a million times, but I really hope you appreciate it. I'm starting to get into YouTube more, and I really can't thank even just anyone for watching. To thank everybody, because really my goal is to help people. I've started posting on LinkedIn, trying to help as many people as possible about, well, how does the actual groundwork of finance work, and it's really mostly on risk. And if you want to take a look at my LinkedIn, I'm going to leave it in the description. And I hope you learned something today, because I'm learning something every day. I mean, as long as I read something from a book every day, I learn something, and I hope you could do the same thing. And take that risk where you can. If you lose, please get back up, because really that's how most people have won. Is they took risk, lost, got back up, and kept doing it for a long period of time. Same thing in boxing. You gotta get hit in the face enough times to really take it and hit them back, and can't do more than that. You just gotta keep going in consistency, and I really appreciate it, and thank you.